April 1940. Europe was already at war. Yet in the far north, Norway maintained a fragile neutrality. Its coastline, jagged and carved with deep fjords, opened toward the North Atlantic. The ports along this coastline were gateways for essential resources, particularly Swedish iron ore, which was vital to Germany's war industry. When the Baltic Sea froze in winter, this ore moved through Narvik, a northern port that became strategically critical. To Adolf Hitler, Norway was not just neutral land. It was a corridor of steel, a key to sustaining Germany's military ambitions. The German leadership feared that Britain might intervene. The Royal Navy dominated the seas, and if Narvik were cut off, Germany's supply lines would be vulnerable. Securing Norway would protect Germany's northern flank, provide naval and air bases for operations in the Atlantic, and ensure the steady flow of resources. The plan to accomplish this was a daring, complex assault combining land, sea, and air forces, designed to achieve rapid success before Norway could fully mobilize. On April 9th, the campaign began. German warships advanced into Norwegian ports under cover of darkness. Denmark fell within hours, allowing Germany to secure its southern approach to Norway. Norwegian defenses faced immediate challenge. Oscarsborg Fortress guarded the Oslo Fjord. Its heavy guns aimed at any intruders. When the German cruiser Blücher moved up the fjord, the fortress opened fire. Shells struck the cruiser, igniting fires, while torpedoes ripped through its hull. Blücher sank, and hundreds of German soldiers and officials perished. This action delayed the German advance and gave King Haakon VII and the government precious hours to escape Oslo, establishing the first act of Norwegian resistance. Elsewhere, German troops landed with calculated precision. In Bergen, Trondheim, Stavanger, and other ports, they seized strategic points. Paratroopers captured airfields, demonstrating the increasing role of airborne operations in modern warfare. The Luftwaffe quickly gained control of the skies, bombing defensive positions and targeting Allied ships attempting to intervene. Germany's strategy relied on speed, surprise, and coordination among sea, land, and air forces. In the north, Narvik emerged as a critical battleground. 10 German destroyers transported mountain troops into the Ofot Fjord, capturing the port and securing the railway linking it to Swedish iron ore fields. However, the destroyers became trapped in narrow fjords, vulnerable to attack. The Royal Navy responded decisively. In 2 intense naval engagements, British destroyers and the battleship Warspite engaged the German ships. Torpedoes streaked through icy waters, shells echoed off the fjord walls. By mid-April, most of the German destroyers had been sunk. Hundreds of stranded German sailors joined the mountain troops on land, reinforcing the ground campaign under harsh conditions. Allied forces, including British, French, Polish, and Norwegian troops, converged on Narvik. Fighting in northern Norway was grueling. Snow blanketed the mountains well into spring. Temperatures fell below freezing at night. Movement was slowed by rugged terrain, steep slopes, and deep snow. Artillery and supplies had to be hauled by hand or improvised transport. Visibility shifted rapidly with the weather, from clear Arctic light to blinding snowstorms. Small units maneuvered across rocky ridges and into valleys, engaging in close-range combat where strategy met raw endurance. In central Norway, around Trondheim, the Allies attempted landings designed to divide German positions. However, coordination faltered. Supplies were scarce. Luftwaffe air attacks disrupted reinforcements. The British aircraft carriers launched planes into the frigid sky, while cruisers and destroyers struggled to shield transports. On land, Norwegian units fought bravely but were often under-equipped and poorly organized. They mounted delaying actions in mountain passes and valleys, slowing German advances and providing symbolic resistance despite overwhelming odds. Hegra Fortress in the south became a center of determined Norwegian resistance. A small garrison held out for weeks against German bombardments. Despite isolation and limited resources, the defenders delayed German operations and inflicted casualties. Their resilience became a symbol of national determination. inspiring both civilians and soldiers elsewhere. By late May 1940, the Allies achieved a breakthrough at Narvik. Coordinated land and sea attacks pushed German forces into surrounding hills. On May 28th, Narvik was recaptured, marking the first clear Allied ground victory of the Second World War. German troops retreated, facing dwindling supplies and the threat of encirclement. For a brief moment, the campaign seemed to tilt in the Allies' favor. Yet events elsewhere in Europe redefined the strategic situation. On May 10th, Germany launched a massive offensive in Western Europe, invading Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. Armored divisions surged through the Ardennes. Allied defenses collapsed, creating an urgent crisis. Resources committed to Norway were now desperately needed on the Western Front. Commanders in Britain and France faced the grim reality that the Northern campaign could not continue at its current scale. Operation Alphabet began in early June. Allied forces evacuated from Narvik and other positions in the early morning hours. Ships slipped through fjords, carrying thousands of troops. Equipment and artillery were abandoned or destroyed to prevent capture. During the evacuation, the aircraft carrier Glorious and its escorting destroyers were intercepted by German battleships, resulting in heavy loss of life. The operation underscored the danger inherent in retreat, even when strategically necessary. By June 10th, organized Norwegian resistance collapsed. King Haakon VII and the government went into exile in Britain, committed to continuing the struggle from abroad. Norway entered 5 years of occupation. German forces fortified the coastline with airfields, naval bases, and defensive works, creating a network that later influenced Allied naval strategy in the Atlantic. The campaign left lasting consequences. For Germany, it secured vital resources and strategic positions, but at a significant cost. They lost a large portion of its destroyer fleet, weakening Germany's naval capacity for future operations. For the Allies, the campaign exposed deficiencies in planning, coordination, and rapid deployment. Political fallout in Britain led to the resignation of Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and the rise of Winston Churchill, whose leadership defined the next phase of the war. Norway itself experienced profound transformation. Resistance movements began to form, conducting intelligence gathering, sabotage operations, and clandestine communications with the Allies. Norwegian merchant sailors continued to serve in convoys across the Atlantic, supporting critical supply routes. The occupation galvanized national identity and laid the groundwork for coordinated resistance throughout the war. Strategically, the battles demonstrated emerging characteristics of modern warfare. Amphibious landings, airborne assaults, and combined arms operations were all tested. Control of the skies repeatedly proved decisive. Terrain-shaped tactics, fjords restricted naval movement, mountains slowed armies, and Arctic weather disrupted plans. Speed and surprise enabled initial German success, but sustaining distant operations proved costly. Norway became both a proving ground and a cautionary tale about the limits of operational reach. The campaign also highlighted the human dimension of war. Soldiers endured freezing temperatures, grueling marches, and constant threat of enemy fire. Small units fought under extreme isolation, relying on initiative and resilience. Civilians faced occupation, displacement, and the moral challenges of collaboration and resistance. Every action, from fortress gunners stopping a cruiser to mountain troops maneuvering through snow, carried consequences for the larger conflict. All across Norway, the campaign reflected contrasts in warfare. Massive warships operated in confined waters. Paratroopers descended on frozen airfields. Mountain troops fought amid ice and rock. Fortress guns delayed invaders in early dawn light. Each element interacted with geography and weather, creating a complex, unforgiving theater of operations. 62 days of combat reshaped Northern Europe. Naval battles, mountain warfare, and airborne operations tested strategic principles and human endurance. The Second World War found one of its first proving grounds in Norway, revealing the speed, ferocity, and global scope that defined the conflict. Lessons learned here resonated in future campaigns. from the Arctic convoys to amphibious assaults in Normandy. In retrospect, Norway was far more than a peripheral theater. It demonstrated the evolving nature of war, the interplay between geography and strategy, and the critical role of logistics, coordination, and leadership. It exposed vulnerabilities in both Germany and the Allies while simultaneously offering victories and experiences that shaped the broader war. Amphibious invasions, airborne operations, and integrated land-sea-air campaigns all emerged as defining features of modern combat. The campaign left a complex legacy. For Germany, the occupation secured resources but stretched supply lines and cost valuable naval assets. For Britain and the Allies, it highlighted strategic weaknesses but contributed to political change that strengthened leadership in the long run. For Norway, it transformed a neutral nation into a battleground, forging resistance movements and a national resolve that persisted throughout the occupation. April to June 1940. 62 days of relentless combat, of naval duels in icy fjords, mountain battles through snow and rock, and airborne operations that tested courage and coordination. In the shadowed fjords of Norway, the Second World War asserted its reach. The campaign shaped strategy, politics, and national identity, providing a lens through which to understand the broader conflict.